Inference Plus Story Short Number 20, Series A. Claire stood at the top of the stairwell and gripped the handrail. Her knuckles were white. As long as she didn't look down the dizzying nautilus of stairs that spiraled downwards into eternity, she'd be fine. Intellectually, she knew that her fear of the stairwell was irrational. Yes, the stairs were made of poured concrete, and yes, the teenaged boys were twice her size and could easily knock her off her feet. Yes, she could go crashing down the stairs before landing in a heap of crushed and bloody bones on the landing. Yes, all of that was possible. However, in the 5 years she'd been teaching social studies at Overland High School, not one person, child or adult, had plummeted to their death. Intellectually, Claire knew that the odds that she would be the victim of such a terrible accident were low. However, on a deep-in-her-guts level, she felt certain that the fates had merely been biding their time as she waited for the ideal sacrifice to the school gods, and she was destined to be that sacrifice. She must be diligent, she must be vigilant, and above all else, she must avoid using the stairs during passing periods. And therein lay Claire's conundrum. Unlike most of her colleagues, Claire did not have her own classroom. She spent her days traveling from unoccupied room to unoccupied room while other teachers were on their planning periods, educating children on world religions and rivers of Asia in a different location every hour. Consequently, when the bell rang to signal the end of class, she, like her students, had precisely 5 minutes to move from her current location to her next one, which was often located a floor above or below the one where she found herself. While her mind told her it was simply a case of inconsiderate scheduling, the deep-in-her-guts voice told her it was all part of a larger plot to use her as a sacrifice. The life of one social studies teacher in exchange for an unlimited supply of copier paper. Every time Principal Dane said something like, "Remember your why," at a faculty meeting, she felt like he was sizing her up and remembering the nefarious reason why he'd hired her in the first place. To postpone her bloody fate, Claire had developed a series of clever workarounds to avoid the stairs when they were overrun with inattentive and often stinky teens. The freight elevator was the safest choice, but it was notoriously unreliable and often bore an out-of-order sign taped across its doors. Depending on the temperament of the class, she could sometimes slip out 30 seconds or so before the dismissal bell in order to gallop up or down before the stampede began. However, neither of these plans was completely foolproof, and there were simply times when taking the stairs, tightly tied, her bag was firmly snugged against her shoulder and her rosary was clenched in the palm of her left hand, leaving her right free to grip the handrail tighter than the lid of a pickle jar on a humid day. Even then, she imagined herself falling, knees and elbows and ankles and ribs cracking against the unyielding concrete until the final blow cracked open her skull and sent her into the afterlife. Claire believed in heaven, and she believed she would go there one day. She simply wasn't ready for today to be that day. "Take a seat, Claire." 3 of Claire's colleagues were seated at a table in Sarah Simpson's room. Samantha gestured to an open chair. "We've asked you to meet us here today because we're worried about you," Connie said, patting Claire's shoulder and giving her a motherly smile. "We've noticed you seem to be struggling with something, and we want to help," Samantha added. "Cut the crap," Sarah said. "Claire, you're being a total weirdo about the steps. What gives?" Claire sat down heavily. "I just have this thing," she said, "about stairwells at schools. They're really dangerous, and you know how rough the kids can be." "You drive a car every day," Sarah said. "You're a lot more likely to die from that than on the stairs. Besides, if you fall during passing period, there's about 1,000,000 volleys to fall on top of and cushion your fall." "I hadn't thought of it that way before," Claire said, "and the thought of squishing some of these kids under me is pretty appealing, honestly." "Do you feel better now?" Connie asked. "Yes," Claire said. "Yes, I do." For the first time in years, Claire felt like she could take the stairs. There was still a small nugget of uneasiness in her stomach, but it was much easier to ignore. Holding her head high, she stepped from the landing with poise and confidence. Her rosary was tucked into its pouch in her bag. She could save it for Mass now. She felt so confident that she didn't stop to read the yellow sign placed just to the right of the handrail. "Caution, wet floor."